People want to say something really controversial. We're now recording. So this is about building a research team, leveraging student support. And I always like to point this out explicitly, because what I find is that nurses are, Jack and Jills of all trades, and we will do anything and everything within our power to accomplish things. And we rely on ourselves a lot. And I think we somewhat are protective of students, and so we don't always use every resource at our disposal because we're used to carrying the world on our shoulder. And so I'm really encouraging us to, share the burden and spread the wealth a little bit. I told you a little bit about me. Feel free to call me Adrienne in perpetuity. My last name's really long, so it's probably best that you just use Adrienne. So it's just a refresher, and I said this in the level 1 training, so I apologize if this is redundant. SMU has a philosophy of scholarship that is much more liberal than I have found across other universities. And I think that's really important to know and get that out there, because I think it can be a little bit of a barrier when people think that research has to be these really big, lofty, multi-site, multi-phase studies. And actually, there's a lot of real scholarship that's happening. And so the idea is that here, scholarship embodies a spectrum of activities and academic pursuits. And these can include the scholarship of discovery or integration or teaching and learning or application and service. And I think if any of us stop right now and think about it, we're all probably doing something that falls into one of these categories. So the scholarship of discovery is kind of the most traditional interpretation of research because it really focuses on scientific inquiry that generates new and unique knowledge. And some of us are doing that. And that can include basic science kind of bench research, but it can also include applied research or translational studies. And this is where implementation studies still are falling under this category of discovery. And that's important to know. Also, in terms of meeting your FIA requirements and trying to get promoted through the system, a lot of things qualify here that maybe you weren't really thinking are a good use of your time. But probably help build a robust research program and justify the promotion, which can include doing some historical research. So if you're looking at doing, for example, you're doing a community-based project where I used to work in Watts in South LA, if I don't know anything about the history of the Watts Uprising in 1965, I'm really not going to be able to accurately talk about health disparities for this community, because you may not know that this university that I was at and also MLK, the hospital, were established in response to that uprising. So what does that mean when somebody shows up as an outsider and is like, I'm here to help you? Some of these things that we don't always consider scholarship really make us holistic, well-rounded researchers. And case studies and systematic reviews, kind of the stuff that's not super sexy or exciting, but does help you understand as a scientist, what is the larger discourse on this topic. And then, of course, integration is using relationships and concepts or even original work from yours and other people's work, and really just making sure that you're contextualizing and combining this work to have best practice. And so that can be you wanting to do a review of the literature because, the hospital you're in uses saline bullets to clean trachs, and some people don't. Some people are like, that's a terrible practice, right? But I know that they do it here, so maybe I need to actually get a sense of what does the practice look like. And some of that is just a critical analysis of systems, which can feel a little abstract, but is really critical where we provide care. There's other examples there. Scholarship of teaching and learning. I dare a single person to tell me that they haven't pivoted in some creative or responsive way during the pandemic. There is just no way that people have not really worked hard to make this still a welcoming and educational space for students. I'm 100% sure this has happened. So it's important to get credit for it, right? If you're doing things and you recognize people feel some kind of way about your intervention, or you feel a certain way about it, it's really important for us to know. And then finally, application and service. And this is, again, that community-based work, really applying it in the community and understanding what is the impact of our efforts. Can we be better at this? And I was just on another call where we were talking about a program that is totally validated, but it may not be validated in a specific community setting during a pandemic. And maybe the program is affected and you did it, or effective and you did it and it's great. It works exactly like it's supposed to. That would still be good for me to know that in this stressed out, under-resourced and or short-staffed community, it's still working, right? So there's a lot of ways that we can make sure that we're getting credit for the stuff that we're doing anyway. And most importantly, disseminating it. And this is a big barrier to people because it is the least fun aspect of the scientific process, right? Like when you think I teach the scientific method to people, and that last little bit we always leave off, that actually get it out into the world, throw it on the wall so other people can throw things on the wall, and we have a bigger impression of what science means for this particular phenomenon. Luckily, at SMU, there's a very broad definition of dissemination. So there are a lot of times when maybe you could be on a talk show, or you can do an op-ed, right? You could do small things, create a pamphlet that you leave at an FQHC on a specific topic. A lot of different ways to get your work out there, which is really fantastic because it means that you have more opportunities to get recognized for the things that you're already doing. So I wanted to speak just really quickly about the vicious cycle. And this doesn't have to be vicious. This can be a positive cycle, but for a lot of people, it's not. And I used to call this, when you win, you keep winning. It's an unfair system that's built into how we do research in this country and nationally, but this is how it goes. You do a study, if you're lucky enough to actually do a study, and then you publish your findings. And if you publish your findings and you are doing kind of a series of these as a body of work, you start to become known in the community. And you're a topical expert. They Google something, they Google burnout, and Martinez Hollingsworth pops up, right? And because you get that visibility, collaborators from other institutions start to seek you out and ask for your opinion and pay for you to be a subject matter expert and co-author on their publications because you're a consultant. And that's how you get more publications, not by writing more papers necessarily, but maybe 3 papers, you're the first author, but 6 papers, you're like second or third or seventh author, because they're using your thoughts and your ideas and your feedback. And then when you go to apply for a grant, you submit grants, you have evidence of this knowledge. You've got pilot studies, you've got preliminary testing, you've got proof of concept, and you're just so much more reliable to the funders. Therefore, you get a grant to buy out your research time. So you're not focusing all of your energy on your normal teaching responsibilities and this side thing. You have a little bit of a reprieve, which then allows you to do a study, right? So if you never get to the point where you publish findings, you never get freedom to do anything else. And you get locked into this weird space, and that's not great. Some people have talked to me about how, they're stuck at the do a study because they don't really know whether what they're doing qualifies. Like, is this actually science, or is this just a side thing that I'm doing, but I didn't set it up on the way in, and now I don't feel like I can do anything. A lot of the early career researchers that I've talked to at SMU are in this space, but the mid-career researchers are in this space where they have a legacy and history, but they haven't built a program of research, and so they are not known as experts. So maybe you have exhaustive experience on perinatal discharge when parents are smoking. But if I Google that, I will never find you, which means that none of the other people working in that space are going to find you. And that really is hard to get out of when you're in this cycle. So today we're going to talk a little bit about building a research team. I don't have all the answers. The way I like to do this is talk about my own experiences and what was helpful. I encourage other people to share their experiences because I'm just one person. Like, we're all just one person, and nurses are historically bad at carrying the world on their shoulders. And it's important to know how we can reach out and make it us versus the world and not me versus the world. It doesn't have to be versus, but you know, you see what I'm saying. So in terms of building a program of research, for some people it's intentional, for some people it's unintentional, you just kind of get there. It often starts off with one question or one project. One of the problems that I see is that people think it's a path. And when it's a path, you think that you have to get the next step in order to get to the next step, and then the step after, and the step after, and the step after. If you never get to the second step, you're kind of stuck. And that really is limiting to people's careers. So the way I see research is not a path, but kind of more like the very complicated process that you see on the right. And that is like DNA sequencing or something. I was looking for a complicated chart because I wanted you to kind of mentally position yourself right there. That's your research question, where the star is. And there are a bunch of things that you can do to pursue that line of inquiry that make up the sum of the phenomenon that you're studying. But there's a bunch of stuff that came first. There is the literature reviews and building a theoretical model and doing interviews with populations so that you become a population expert and mastering methodologies. Tons of stuff to publish and get under your belt before you move forward. If you can move forward, power to you. But for those of us who don't have time or funding yet to buy time, there's a lot of small stuff that you can do that, frankly, you can delegate to students that will still keep your program of research flowing while you make time for yourself by getting some funding. So again, I'm going to talk a little bit about myself. If anybody's interested in this, let me know. I'm always looking for collaborators. And I'm feeling a little peaky. I might have to grab some juice. Anyway, so I did a dissertation that described Latina women living with diabetes and depression and their interactions with their providers. And it resulted in a theoretical model called the secret self-management loop. And you'll see basically they get caught in this weird situation where once they have a bad experience with the provider, they start doubting their motivation and reacting to those doubts. And then they just never really share the truth about how they're managing their diabetes, right? They say one thing, yes, I'm taking my meds, yes, I'm on my diet or whatever. But they're in secret, they're doing tons of other stuff, some of which is good and some of which is bad. And again, there's a big historical legacy about why older women of color might not want to be very honest with their provider within this hierarchical space. So I am really interested, I kind of looked in my postdoc at this loss of faith in providers, this communication disconnect and what that does to the clinical care experience. So then I was like, all right, well, I'm going to simplify what my findings, I'm going to publish my dissertation, I'm going to start working on a paper for a smaller, high-impact journal to get my dissertation out there, trying to refine this model and think about what's missing in my work. But as soon as I started disseminating this work, people started giving me ideas, right? And it made me think about who are the other people involved here, right? There's patients, there's also the providers. I don't have their perspective. There's also all these other factors. There's trust and mistrust. I don't really know where to go with this. But I do know that I want to disrupt it between when they have a bad experience and when they start doubting whether their provider is there for altruistic reasons. So a lot of us, and I say a lot of us, but actually a lot of you, because I am not an introvert. But as scientists, a lot of us are introverts. And as nurses, a lot of us have had to build walls around ourselves to manage the incredibly traumatic experiences that we witness constantly, either as a teacher, as a student, as a nurse on the floor, as a nurse in your family. We have the weight of the world. I keep saying that. And we protect ourselves, so sometimes we're not as willing to go out and meet people. I will tell you all right now, I only know a few of your names, even though we've had a lot of interactions. I have a mental block on people's names because when I used to work patient care, patients would come up to me frequently, and I just had to. So I made some opportunity rules for myself to break out of that. And one is present whenever you can. If you get the opportunity to present your work, present it. And you never know who's listening. And I was hoping somebody would tell me what to do in this next step because I studied diabetes. Ask me anything you want about diabetes or mental health. I know nothing about burnout. I know nothing about the workforce. These were whole new spaces to me. Also, maintain a social media presence if you can. which isn't just liking things, but try to actually set up something that hypes you a little bit. Set up an Instagram that's literally about you and your research, so you're searchable, right? Set up Facebook and have longer discussions with people, and invite people that you see on social media or just like in life to connect. Don't be scared to make that first outreach and be like, hi, I'm Eric. I'm really interested in, telehealth and other science-based interventions for students that are like, just everybody's scared about what people are going to think of them. The reality is most of us don't think about anybody else very much. We're totally focused on ourselves. So when somebody reaches out, you're like, oh, that's interesting. Also, share the wealth. When you hear about any opportunities that may be valid for somebody else's work, send it to them with your regards. Hey, Maria, I saw this thing about long-term care. I know this is your space. I don't really know what you do, but like, check it out, girl. You'll start to see these things coming back to you in a cyclic way, because of all of the registered nurses in the country, only 1% have PhDs. Only half of a percent are Latino. So if you want to talk about Latino health with a PhD nurse, you're gonna come across me at some point. A lot of us know each other. DNPs are a small but growing population, but they still don't represent the majority of nurses. We're a small group, and we really do need to support each other and share this space, because there's a lot of collaborative work to do. So I didn't show you, but that last slide, a gal from Stanford invited me to go talk at MedX, and I had no idea what I was doing, but I was like, no problem. I'm gonna take this model from the Academy of Medicine, invite a bunch of doctors and nurses and caregivers that happen to be at the conference, and just ask them what they think about burnout. Get a working definition, because everybody has different definitions, and just ask people what they think. And it helped me mentally as a researcher understand that I care about the depersonalization aspect of burnout. It helped me think about the fact that there's all of these different players here. And if I really want to advance my larger goal, which is empathic diabetes care and the safety net, I need to deal with all of this stuff. But because I was doing some outreach and communicating with people, these are the people that contacted me. These are the partners that I have because I put stuff out there. Right. So one of the guys who watched my talk at Stanford is at Yale, and he actually now got hired at Stanford. And Stanford, I maintain a connection with them. And a partner at Cedars read a talk at a review that I published, and is now one of my collaborators. All of these different groups means that last year I published 12 papers, but I only actually published 4. All of the other papers were people asking my guidance or asking my opinion or just asking me to edit a paragraph. And then you are now on their work. And anytime anybody Googles somebody who's actually much more well-known in this space than me, my name is going to be connected. And I'm slowly building my brand, because that's what you're doing. You're building your brand, because as you get recognized, winners keep winning in this space. It's unfair. But when you start getting some grants and awards and things under your belt, suddenly you are the go-to person for this space. So I really benefit from students tremendously. And I want to talk about pros and cons, because there are both for reals. But, I'm doing an operations and scholarship job. That's insane. There's no way that I have time to do all the work that's on the left side of the star for any of the projects that I'm looking at doing right now. Ain't gonna do lit reviews, no way. I don't have time. Nobody's really publishing them anyway. You really want me to, but I'm not gonna know the lay of the land scientifically unless I do it. And that is perfect for a student. So I really try to actively think about what I can do that is, working smarter and not harder, and being as efficient as possible. And for me, students fill that space. So some pros: it is incredibly hard to get into school right now, y'all. I have a 17-year-old who is a smart kid, varsity athlete, and I have no idea where she's going to get into college, because it is so challenging for them to get accepted. Everywhere is impacted. But guess what? Nursing is the most competitive major across a large number of schools, including the UCs and Cal States. So everybody volunteers. Not that many people do research. And so it makes them stand out in a way that really builds their CV and makes them seem like viable candidates. There's limited funding and scholarships. So some of this research work can be fellowships that are paid. There's ways to get students paid under you, or to even do supplements on grants that you have existing. But again, they need the support. It also really is some generativity. We need to be able to retire. So I need some nurses to be nurse researchers in the next 10 years, because I don't want to do this until I'm 80, right? And so it exposes them to this larger world. It's so important to be on the floor. It's so important to be like doing home health work. I respect that tremendously. But we also need the people that are creating the care pathways and evidence-based practice that are helping those individuals be their best nursing selves when they're actually out there. Also, what's kind of a nice benefit is this is a regressive intervention, which means it tends to benefit the students at the bottom more than it benefits the students who, my mom is the head of neurosurgery at Mayo and my dad is a lawyer. Like, they don't need me. They don't need this stuff. And they just kind of, therefore, don't really take advantage of it. So I'm often helping students who are just by default, BIPOC students, Black, Indigenous, people of color, first-gen students, Spanish-speaking as like their primary language. Like, it just works out that way, which feels great. And most importantly, because this is a transaction, you got to move out some of these research projects. If you're sitting on data, I just reviewed a paper yesterday for Hispanic Healthcare International, beautifully written paper, so important, data from 2015. And I wrote to the editor, this isn't applicable anymore, ever. It will never be. Because while that was very legitimate data, we've had COVID and it's been just too long. So if you want to publish this, maybe publish it as a short report. You sit on really valuable data and the world rolls on without you. And that's such a shame, because nobody will ever have your unique perspective. That's why we need lots of scientists, not just like 3. Right? Because your piece is so important and we lose it if it doesn't go out. Yeah, cons are it takes time and students can be very frustrating, partly because they're really stressed. We're borrowing from an already stressed pool. So I would encourage you to expand beyond the School of Nursing, just put out general calls. I have a number of students that are working for me right now. Some are in high school, some are in med school. I take whoever wants to work on my projects and get credit for doing it. And I don't really care, because we're all a family in healthcare. This is real interdisciplinary work. They have competing priorities. A lot of them are working, some of them are dating. They're like barely figuring out how to balance the stresses of school. And that's a challenge. And there is no real way for you to enforce their productivity, which is also such an annoying thing. So you got to figure out how you're going to manage that. And on our last slide, I'm going to show you what I do with my research collective to kind of talk through that. And training takes time. Getting somebody to be your right hand takes time, but you never know who people are going to be, frankly. I had a student who came to me who wanted to go to an ELM program and worked on some of my stuff, was a great gal, got into the ELMS program, then got into the PhD program, and then introduced me to a state senator who writes me recommendation letters all the time and is super. You don't know who people are. There are distant benefits that you can't even foresee. But also, her name is Marianne Gutierrez. She is an amazing researcher, and I never would have known her if I didn't kind of put that out there. It helps offset the challenges a little bit. But yeah, it can be a pain in the butt. I want to be honest about that, because it is. So this is how I roll. And again, it works for me. You may have to do your own version of it, but I don't have any extra time to spare. So I don't do one-offs with people who aren't committed, which means students hear about me they watch me speak, they hear about me at a conference. We just did this recent kind of healing session for students who are students of color, and I've had 3 students reach out to me about working and all this stuff. If I took the time to sit with every person who heard my name, I wouldn't get anything done. So I maintain social media accounts that track my work, and I create videos about topics, and I have them on the YouTube channel that I administer. And I don't have any requirements. I upload them myself. It's called Theory Generator Playground. We are a collective of scientists and artists, because I used to paint murals before I became a nurse. And we are looking to advance theoretical knowledge around vulnerable populations. That's how old this is. We don't even say vulnerable populations anymore, right? But the idea is that we do service projects, we do research projects, we do mentorship. If people really are committed and they've worked with me, then I will sit with them and talk about career stuff. I help them with their applications. You know, they need letters of recommendation, and people don't know them. So public talks and all this other kind of stuff. But in order to get to me as a student, you will have heard my name and you'll email me. And you'll get an email back from me saying, wow, I really appreciate your interest. That's great. Go to my website, go to my YouTube channel and watch a few videos. I want you to know what you're talking about getting involved in. And I want you to pick a project off of there and tell me why it was meaningful to you. And then come back to me with some information, and then I'll set up a meeting with you. And then once you get screened through that meeting, then I just start inviting you to meetings that I'm having with my larger research, relationships. And you need to sit there as a fly on the wall. I don't want you to interrupt. I don't want you to answer questions. Just observe. And then when I have something for you to do, you're really familiar with all the things I'm interested in, all the things I'm working on, and you can just pick up and step into what is essentially an admin role. Most of the people who contact me are pretty tech savvy, so they can set up Excel spreadsheets and do things like that. So I do a no gatekeeping policy, which means you can participate as little as much as you want, but I only continually call back the people that have shown commitment, because I need to have things keep rolling along. And if I'm just relying on one person who isn't being paid and they're not dedicated, it's true, it's more stress than it's worth. But in sum, it has been a tremendous benefit for me. And I highly recommend it. So I had another ask real quick before we sign off. We're going to just talk for a little bit now because we have a little bit of time. Can you put into the chat what is your topic of interest or your research focus? Try to do 5 words or fewer if you can, just so that we have it on record and other people know, because if they see an opportunity, I want them to feel like they can send it to you and be like, hey, I saw this grant or this conference or whatever. And that way we can see if anybody else shares your topic. And if you happen to see anybody who does, I would like to make a pact. Do you guys know about the USC Ring Pact? Oh, this is cool. So anybody who goes to USC and graduates from USC and gets a graduate ring is allowed to, holistic, right? So you're allowed to ask any other graduate of USC for a meeting. Doesn't matter how important they are. They can be the Surgeon General. And if you graduated, the agreement they made was that they will meet with you. And so, it's a great way to build that network and connect, people who've made it with people who are on the way. But I would like to make that pact, at least for the individuals who show up to these trainings, which is try to be open to other individuals who reach out to you from this group. And, we all have other dealings with each other that are about staffing and students and all this other stuff. Try to just kind of compartmentalize that and keep this as like your safe mental research space to be able to just connect with each other. So I am now going to stop presenting. There we go. And we're back to just our faces. Any thoughts on any of that?
Well, you've got me excited to get started. You're very inspirational. Thank you.
Cool. I love it. So many people are doing really interesting things here. Was the presentation what you thought you were going to get when you got here? Yeah, or I guess kind of what were you expecting from mid-career, training?
I had no expectation. I was just open, that was very helpful. I think I should have been in the early career session, so I'll watch that video.
Cool. I mean, the first part of it's redundant because I go through how scholarship is different here. But yeah, hopefully it's helpful. I think I'm a very conceptual theoretical person, so I like lots of charts, but you know, I'm really excited to hear what other people are working on, just because this is such a unique opportunity because SMU is embedded in a health system. And people were really impressed when I said I was going to work with you all in Sutter. I mean, they were like, whoa, that is such a great opportunity to gather data. What's up, Mary?
So one of my passions for all of my life has been neonatal vascular access. And I have done a bunch of research on it with development of catheters, preventing infection, one-stick modalities. And we just, I would just like to share that we are just in publication of our 4th edition of the National Guidelines for Neonatal Vascular Access through the Neonatal Association Network of Nursing. It'll be out in 2022. And it's truly a labor of love because we're never funded.
I can't believe that. I can't believe you're not funded, and I can't believe you don't have patents.
Yeah,
wow.
no patents. At the time we were developing the catheter, I was a brand new RN and I was a consultant on the team, and I had no idea of what I was into. But it brought me years and years of good experience. So that's okay too. Not everything's for money, right?
Yeah, not everything's for money, but we're definitely I'll set up a training about working for tech companies and pharmaceutical companies, because I've been burned a couple times. And man, so many really, advances forward are built on the labor of nurses. And so, yes, it's marvelous that it helps people, but also, dang, you could be retired with all that catheter money.
Yeah, and we actually developed the dual lumen. I actually developed the dual lumen with him. Right, I know, and here I sit, but it's okay. And you know what? You said something that I 100% don't believe.
Oh,
100% when you said that in 10 years when you're 80. Okay, that's so not true.
No, I am 45, so I'm not near 80.
Right.
But
yeah,
you know
so
what?
you mean in 40 years you need a succession plan?
Although, how many nurses do you know that work way past retirement? I mean, it's literally that my impression is that we don't feel like we are able to hand stuff off. And we really need to be able to do that. Like, I want to enjoy great grandkids and like retire and sleep in, and so.
Well, that's why I'm trying to build the DNP. I need those nurses to be able to take care of me.
Yeah. Right? No, that's so true. So that's an interesting thought. So also patents. I don't know the rule on patents at SMU, but I have a friend who is an emergency room doctor, but he also has a PhD. And he chose Stanford over the UC system because Stanford lets you keep 50% of the proceeds of a patent. And the UCs, if you invent it while you're there, they own it. So there's a lot of things that as we start growing in this research space in a mid-career way, we should talk about, because toolkits that we create, programs, that sort of stuff, it's true that is intellectual property. So, all right. Did anybody find anybody with shared topics? We've only got 2 so far. Feel free to drop some stuff in there. The other thing that I wanted to mention is that in a lot of educational, like academic environments, your social media people are the hype person for people's products. So if Mary really is putting out this big, new model for how we stick infants, like that should be all over our social media. We should be talking to, local news stations. We should be doing things that are not your job to set up, but I want to make sure that whoever it is that is doing our publicity knows that the College of Nursing is open for business, that we have people doing really great work, and we should be getting interviewed by newscasters and, and just like having posts that we don't have to create that highlight any publications we get or any speaking opportunities. So. All right. So I don't want to keep you all longer than we need to be here. Any other topics that you want to throw out there? Otherwise, I will be posting this video. It'll be in the teams, the current research teams, just like the other one, and we'll keep doing it every week. Feel free to come to the next level 1 where we're going to be talking about IRB and that whole IRB process and what the next step is. And we have, actually, I think the next one is small grants. We have some people from ANII coming to talk about small grants. And then after that, we're doing IRB. But yeah, always welcome to come. Any last minute kind of parting comments? Please don't raise your hands, y'all. Please, yes, talk and feel free to be casual.
Where are the videos posted?
So if you go to the current research CON team and you go into files, there should be a video you can just click on. They won't always be me like presenting like a nerd, but they, when we have guest speakers, we'll be recording what they say. And if you have somebody that you really would like to come talk, let me know. I mean, Lorna is incredibly supportive. And if we need to expend some resources to get the people that we need here to make sure that we get the recognition we deserve, let's do it.
Okay, thank you.
All right, then I am going to hang out for the next 10 minutes and talk if anybody wants to talk, or check my email if everybody wants to sign off. But don't feel pressured to stay. Feel free to have a wonderful night. And just thank you for your interest. And, I'll continue to send out invitations, participate however much or little as you'd like.
Thanks, Adrian.
Thank you. Have a good night.
Thank you. Thank you.
Adrian,
Yes.
I invited you to the DMP Chair Essentials. I set you up a page and it says chat with Adrian, and then I sent you up another page under that module that says Adrian's tips.
Cool.
So,
this is on the Canvas site, right?
Canvas site, you got the invite.
Yep.
Okay, thanks for tonight. Talk to you
Thank
all
you.
soon. Hey, Tammy, can
Yeah.
you call me? We need to be in touch.
Sure. What's your phone number?
You can call me right on Teams, or it's right on my email. It's 305-904-3661. Just need to know where we are with Shantae.
Okay.
Hey, we're still recording, so I'm going to stop recording.
Sorry.